have FiOS. We have one of those stupid boxes in the garage. And so the way I got the internet back was I noticed I have a fridge in the garage, that fridge was off, and I had to flip the circuit breaker. I think the box on the Verizon box, the battery is dead. And because it's on the same fuse that blew, yeah. So it should have actually not been a problem if I wasn't like too stupid to check the fuse box. So that's my bad.
The more you know.
I'm a software engineer, not someone who knows how to run a house like a responsible father.
Now, weren't you just lecturing us about calling yourself an engineer, Mike?
I was not. I'm all for it. Anything that lets me charge more makes me happy.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh my God. Mike, come on.
I assume that's where the Jar Jar impressions came from. Is clients just loved it.
No, it's a good way to get off of those damn review calls.
Right.
Okay, you still want to look at that screen again? No problem. Poor doggy. What happened to your dog? Hawkins the Wizard.
Oh, yeah, chat, too. All over the place.
Oh, man. What a fucking day. I mean, what a day.
Yeah, right. Well, now we can just do a nice, easy show. Have some fun with it. We can make it quick if you like. That's cool.
That's fine. I'm always curious when we like toy with the length, how people respond. I have a pet theory that people prefer their podcast to be the exact length of their commute to work.
So in some way, we're just trying to study that distribution?
Right, we're trying to see like, okay, whose commute is a half hour, right? Like, we have no chat room. Let me tweet this out.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tweet it out. I gotcha. I have to log in.
And what's the date today?
Today is the 10th of June.
That's right. Thank you. And this is 361.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. This is the sound of Coder Radio getting started, everybody.
Code Radio. Radio for coders. Coders for radios.
All right. I will be right back.
Take your time. I'm going to talk to the live stream.
Yeah, you got to take care of the live stream now.
Hello, live stream. Which garment of clothing should I remove first? Socks. Sandals. Socks and sandals. Belt. Which one will it be, live stream? Lutino48 has joined. That's right, Chris. This is the Socks and Sandal Striptease edition of Coder Radio. You might think socks and sandals are wrong, but don't you know that they're just so right? Please call in, dial 1-900-CODER. That's right, 50 cents a minute. I do not have a hairpiece, Crazy Pony. Although I did think about buying a pink afro once. Ooh, crazy Stuxnet conspiracy theories. Oh, Kaspersky. Comrades! What is up? Well, Chris, only Wes could bring the socks and sandals. By the way, socks and sandals in Florida just don't work because it rains. So, for the chat room, why we're late is because it rained like hell here and I lost internet. So this is going to go on till about October. I did discover though that the Verizon Fios box in my garage has a battery, and if I replace that it's one like a big industrial battery. If I replace it, I think it won't die when the fuse blows. So that's
a novel theory.
A thing. I don't know. Yeah, right. I don't know where to buy this battery. So if anybody knows anything about this, just go ahead and email the show or the subreddit. I'm assuming Jeff Bezos will sell it to me. So yeah.
Yeah, something tells me he'd be willing to do that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I just thought it was like self-sustained. Oh, go ahead, Wes.
Oh no, I was gonna say, is there anything you want to trim, tailor, etc. specifically? We could bump both the language stuff to the next week if we want, or...
Do you want to do that? I mean, I know you've been working on the Kotlin stuff. I don't mind bumping both. I'm totally unprepared for mine, so...
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's just bump it?
Yeah,
okay.
No, I think that'll fit, and then we can just, then we've got some hoopla, and we can do the Swift UI stuff. And...
Okay, so I'm just going to copy pasta. All right, and then we'll do... Yeah, so we'll do, feedback, hoopla, Swift UI. Sounds good. I will just put this in Slack very obnoxiously.
Oh, I'm coming in low, huh? Let's fix that.
Low for the show, like Isaac Hayes.
Yeah, all right. How about this now? How's this?
Why do I? You sound fine to me, so it must be a stream.
Oh, Mike, you just flatter me so.
Yeah, apparently I don't know how to use Slack, though. Hang on. Actually, you do what you're doing. I'm just being a jackass. As always. Is this 361? Okay. There we go. Hello, chat room. Is that Chris? Jump in.
It sure
Take
is.
your pants off and jump into the pool.
He tells you to take your pants off and jump in the pool.
Now you listen here. Unless this is an episode about HomePods, I really have nothing to contribute. And that's just...
Hey, don't out me yet. Okay, I didn't take delivery yet.
Oh yeah, once you get it, we got to talk. We got to...
Okay, so I have the tracking number. It does indeed come tomorrow.
Oh.
But it's any time from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., so I'm going to be sitting by the door like a dog. But
Yeah,
still.
that's going to be nice.
I only got one, though. See, we should save it. But yeah, I only got one, and I'm told by the Twitters that that's probably not.
Try it and see what you think.
Okay.
You got to start somewhere.
All right.
That's true.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. All right, have a good show,
Early
guys.
days.
Thank you.
Take it easy.
All right, well, now we've got that squared away. HomePod Mania.
Why is this? See, I don't understand this, Wes. Why? Hang on. I got to restart Audacity. Something's fucked up.
All right, that's good. It's best to work this stuff out now.
Yeah. Because I think, Audacity was recording off the wrong mic. That would have been awesome. Got it fixed.
Yeah, good catch.
Look at Hawkins the Wizard. Is he a wizard, a bird, or a man who dresses like a bird in a furry costume with a wizard hat?
Possibly
No.
all of the above. I mean, that's what I would suspect.
That's true. That is very true.
All right, let's get that. Maybe we can equalize things a bit. All right. How are you doing readiness-wise?
I am ready to roll.
Okay,
I have
great.
tea.
You got tea. Let's check our chat room shot. Yeah, all right. Tea is essential for this sort of thing.
Right you are, Governor. as Joe listens to this on the record and punches me in the face later in Slack.
Well, you had it coming.
Yeah, the British stereotypes are bad. There's Turth. Hawkins the Wizard with the prime numbers.
Got a little feedback coming up, yeah. Some trolling, of course.
Okay, prime numbers continue.
Yeah.
Making the chat room useless. All right.
All right, a little quick check here. Yeah, there we go. And of course, there's like 1,000 planes. So I'm gonna close the window and then we'll get started.
Go ahead. Pop quiz for the chat room. After 11, what is the next prime number? I know you want to. I'll give you a hint. Many buildings do not have enough floor of this number, nor many hotels also do not have a room of this number. Thank you, Hawkins the Wizard. 13.
I like this. This is Coder Radio Quiz Show Edition.
You know, when we run out of content, we should just start doing pub trivia, right? Like, just seriously.
I like that. I think that's a grand idea. All right, so are you ready to start recording, Mr. Dominic?
I was born ready.
All right. 1, 2, 3, record.
Forward.
And we're off.
Do it. God damn it. Do it again. I hate Mac. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Not a problem.
Hang on. I got to kill it. So I guess Audacity needs permission every time? Somehow?
Well, they're just looking after your privacy.
All right.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
Okay, there we go.
Got it.
Excellent. Now, all right, now we can do our moment of silence. Oh, and mute all your phones too. That'd be a good thing to do. All right. 3, 2, 1. All right, that was beautiful.
That was our moment of erotic asphyxiation.
I mean, you get to do whatever you want as long as it's really, really quiet. It is not up to us to judge any farther than that. It's the Coder Radio mandate. Yeah, right? Lots of spin, no judgment.
Lots of spin.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I guess let's get on with the show, huh?
Let's do it. Get her done. Okay.
Oh, that's a little low. We want some real music in this. This is Coder Radio, episode 361 for June 10th, 2019. Hello and welcome to Coder Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show that takes a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. My name is Wes, and I'm extra special pleased to be joined by Mr. Michael Dominic today. He had to survive a thunderstorm and, worse, an internet outage, but nevertheless, you're here, Mike. Welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for being patient, Wes. And I am here, older, wiser, and more educated. Did you know that Fios Verizon boxes have batteries in them?
Oh, no. I've never really dug in too deep to know how those things work on the inside.
Well, I have had one for only 5 years now, and I guess my battery's dead. So when the power went out because of a thunderstorm, I had no interwebs.
No interwebs. Yeah, that's pretty rough when you're trying to do a live streamed internet podcast, right?
Yeah, and it's bad for Coder Radio too. I mean, my whole webcam thing was fine because I pre-recorded it. Oh, you're not talking about that.
Uh-oh, no, I'm not. So before we get feedback about that, which you can do, by the way, to go into coder.show/contact, find all the great ways to get in touch with us, let's get to some feedback we already have from our friend Lance. Now, Lance has a bit of a FOSS quandary. He writes, I was working on an open source project for school that we, meaning 4 members, submitted. Now, as often happens, myself and one other person did about 98% of the work, and the others contributed to the documentation, which incidentally was kept outside the code base. Class is over now for many months, and no one has touched the code, except for the other member who did most of the work. And really, we both want to keep this stuff going. Do we downgrade the other 2 non-contributors from owner to contributor and take over maintaining the project, but give them initial project credit? Do we shoot them an email and inform them of our plans, and with all the risk of confrontation, them saying no or wanting to fight about it? For a little context here, one member felt slighted by the direction the project took, so there's already a little drama. Maybe we should just fork it, There would be some confusion because there's already 15 some users using the snap that we're publishing. Any insight appreciated, Lance?
Yeah. I'm going to go first because I think I'm going to have a much less nuanced and nice approach to this.
Oh, yeah. Lay it down, Mr. Dominic.
Fork it to the ground, man. 15 snap users. I mean, I get that is pretty good for just random FOSS project, but I have never seen a case where contributors got into a, shall we say, Rochambeau contest that ended well for the project as a whole. Just fork it, do your own thing. I'm thinking particularly of, what was it? What is the fork of Ionic West? Is it Ilaria?
I'm forgetting the name, but yeah, I know
it's something like that. Yeah, and the answer is when the contributors don't agree, you fork. And frankly, you should have information on the people that you're using your project. I hope you're saying there's 15, so you must know something. Just be very, very loud about it, right? Write into podcasts that cover this stuff. Post something on a website for the forked project on the GitHub, and link back to the original project and say it's a fork, and very nicely and professionally say it's forked, not for personal conflicts. Never say stuff like that, but say it's forked because I have no idea what your project is, but say it's forked. There was some technical disagreement on how to do something, which I'm getting the feeling is kind of what happened anyway. So, Wes?
Actually, I think I completely agree. It's early enough in the project that you can just fork it, and you're just not going to have the same kind of complaints, right? Totally fair. As long as the license allows you to do that, which sounds like it does, why not keep it simpler? And then they have no claims of governance, right? This is a brand new thing, your own fork, and you can set things up from the get-go. And assuming you're looking to work on this project for, some time to come, after a while, all this nonsense will fade away into the distance of time. So I think you're spot on, Mike. And it's one of the nice things that you can do when you play in the open source space, right? You don't have to stick to existing governance structures or agreements or models. As long as you respect the licenses, have at it. Run it your way. All right, so next up in our feedback segment, Mike, you're pointing us at just a little bit of Mac Pro trolling. Now, we did talk a little bit about the Mac Pro because, well, we were both salivating and acknowledging we're probably never buying one of these things.
Yeah, my banker says I can't have a mortgage to buy a Mac Pro. So the subreddit was kind enough to show us all the things we could buy instead. And it's a pretty long list, Russ. It's not not a conservative list at all.
Yeah, right. Things like a Galaxy S10, a Pixel 3a, maybe an iPhone XR, a Mac Mini for, building and testing all these applications. Plus, you're going to need a mobile development ultrabook, so pick up like an XPS 13 or a Lenovo X1, maybe buy a nice 27-inch 4K monitor, and a Windows PC for, gaming or machine learning or whatever. You can buy all those things. Or
Yeah.
buy the base level Mac Pro.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear to me that the Mac Pro is just not meant for developers. Certainly, if you're a guy named Marco, you could definitely buy one, and because you're rich. But yeah, you don't need this, right? Like, no one needs this.
Well, maybe, yeah, all right, you're right. With the word need, no one needs this. Yeah,
Right, and when I say no one, I mean developers, right? Like, if you are literally working on the next Marvel movie, yes, you probably do need this. But, right, no, absolutely. If you want this and you have the money, grate that cheese, man. Grate it with all your fury, your might, your love. Be like Sauron. Pour everything into the cheese.
That's some special advice you've got there, Mr. Dominic. But I think you're right about that. Let's move right along because there's more fallout from WWDC, even though we're a week on now. One thing you pointed out, there will be a change in the default shell in the next version of macOS.
That's right. The born again shell is banished from the land.
No more.
No more. In the land of Catalina, there will be no born again shell. It is now Z shell. So, yay. And when I say yay, I mean I hate change.
Yeah, I am curious about how you actually feel about this because I don't have a lot of Macs in my life. I have used ZSH before, and I think it's a fine shell environment, but it's a weird change to make, and it's not going to be completely smooth.
Well, I have a few thoughts on this, right? But for a baseline for our non-Mac users in the audience, the Bash on Mac currently is an old version of Bash anyway. So one thing that Linux switchers will find is that, holy crap, Bash is so much better on Ubuntu, or insert distro here. That has nothing to do with Mac and everything to do with the fact that Apple packages an old version of Bash. And that it has everything to do with the GPL3, I believe, which Apple does not like.
Right, so they're basically packaging the newest version of Bash they could that was still on
GPL2.
the GPL2. Right.
Right.
And hence you have this ancient version of Bash, and it turns out Bash has kept getting better, actually.
Yes, it turns out the open source community keeps improving. So Z shell is probably a smart choice, although kind of disappointing in my mind. Z shell is more or less one-to-one command similar to Bash. There is unless you are a deep command line user on Mac, you're probably not going to notice. If you administer a lot of Linux servers that have Bash, then there might be edge cases, but realistically, your average development user working on a Mac is probably never going to notice the difference. I actually wish if they were going to do this, they had just gone with fish shell or F shell. If you're going to change it and if you're going to cause that disruption, which again, for most people probably isn't that much of a disruption and is why they went with Z shell, I would have loved a more modern, really much more modern shell. Z shell's kind of, it's not bad. I don't mean to disparage Z shell, but it's a pretty conservative choice. If you were going away from Bash, you could have, again, I like F shell or fish shell, whatever you want to call it, but yeah.
No, I do find myself, when switching shells, usually on fish. But is there something to be said about trying, they didn't have a lot of options. They're seemingly totally unwilling to ship the GPL3 binaries. Fish is, some of the more recent versions actually have been making some, they've added support, so it's the AND operators and OR operators are more similar, so they have been making some strides to being more Bash compliant. But Fish is up front about not being Bash compliant. ZSH also has some of their own stuff, right? So, I don't know that you could convert a script if you're using some complicated stuff, but probably command line will just be nicer. Advantages to Fish, on the other hand, of course, you don't have to configure it, right? We'll have links to a bunch of different ZSH resources in the show notes over at coder.show/361. There's a whole bunch of different configuration guides and tool sets and plugins and options for making ZSH shine. Fish, I never find myself really doing that because I only need to tweak a few settings and get going.
Yeah.
I don't have a good sense, though, like of the Mac developer community, people who actually use shells on Mac OS. How many of them are like really familiar with it and want customization or care at all? And how many of them just won't notice at all?
I mean, my experience has been not much, right? Like, I honestly, I think this is the biggest non-story of WWDC, except for a few small, maybe not small, but a few hardcore like DevOps, Docker developers, or developers using Docker, not the developers of Docker, of course, who are running Mac OS, and like they're going to get hit with their giant bash scripts that are edge cases going from bash to C shell.
Right. And you can still, of course, have bash installed. And if it's not your default shell, you can still, if you've specified, run it with the binary that's bash. Well, that should just still work too.
Right. You could act like, I'm sure someone is going to package up bash in a .app that you can just run on your Mac if it doesn't already exist. Right.
So you're not freaking out about it. That's what I'm hearing.
No, I'm a little disappointed, right? Like if you're gonna change, I would have actually liked to see Fish, and I know that's my preference. And I did not know you were a Fishy, by the way.
Yeah, I don't use it on all my machines, and I don't often put it on servers. But for my desktop machines, I like it a lot.
Well, you know what they say, Wes? Plenty of fishies in the sea.
That's true. So one little trolling question here, though. Are you sure they wouldn't have just reinvented and made their own shell if they were really going to spend that much time into it?
Yeah, Swift shell. I can already see it.
It's like AppleScript, but in a shell form. Somehow merged with the best aspects of PowerShell.
Craig Federighi, if you're listening, you did not hear that. It's just delete the episode. Don't listen. Do not tempt them. Okay? Just, I'm back on Mac, and I really don't want it to be non-compliant with POSIX. Like, let's just... They're scaring me, Wes. They're scaring me with this T2 crap, and like, I don't know. I think the BSD core might be in a little bit of danger, but that's my pet theory. 5 years, no more BSD on Mac.
Right, you can see them just between other things, maybe virtualized environments or other solutions. It's kind of worrisome. Like, how much are they going to keep that legacy intact, and how much are they going to move forward to their own development environments and development kits? Because they have all that stuff, and if you don't need the other stuff if you're just writing for their ecosystem. But it's nice to be able to do both from one machine.
There's an Alice Cooper song about this. Welcome to my nightmare. And let's just leave it there.
I think that's well said.
So, speaking of Swift, since you brought it up, I have to say that I love Swift.
I'm suspicious that this isn't the real Michael Dominic. What happened? What happened in that thunderstorm?
I was struck by a lightning. A Swift bolt redesigned my UI via Swift UI. That was really, really contrived.
Okay, well, to make up for it, maybe just break down Swift UI a bit, because we didn't really get to talk about it too much on the previous episode. Now you've had some time to look at it, let it soak in, see other people chat about it. What's going on here? Why should I care?
So it is a declarative user interface language, basically, written in Swift, obviously, for making iOS and macOS UIs. It is very similar to, let's say, a reactive programming model, right? You have components. I think the keys are one, it's bringing iOS development, user interface development into a more modern development paradigm. So no more crazy layout constraints. Yay. Right? No more screwing around an interface builder. Yeah. It does not take a lot of code with Swift UI to get a pretty decent standard UI done. Of course, once you start going like super fancy designers handed you Photoshop files, yes, then you're going to be doing quite a bit of work. But it's based on a component model. So I've been digging in, Wes. I've been scooping the ice cream out of the Swift UI tub. And I have 2 blog posts written converting an Xcode project, existing one, to Swift UI, and existing components to Swift UI. So again, that would be like, let's say you have, Wes's button, right? which is a subclass of UI button.
Right. So this is some component I've sort of customized, added some neat functionality. Maybe you press it and it buys me a sandwich or something great like that.
Right, and it has like certain layout properties that you don't want to lose, right? This is SwiftUI allows this type of custom control to just simply be wrapped in SwiftUI and then used like any other SwiftUI class. And it doesn't have to be your thing, right? Like I did something with the Google sign-on button, which is a GD sign-on button from the Google SDK. And sure enough, you can just wrap that bad boy into SwiftUI.
Oh, see, that sounds pretty nice.
But you have something in here about React developers in SwiftUI.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. I saw a couple tutorials floating around, or tutorial is too strong of a word, explorations perhaps, and just trying to make some comparisons between how stuff is done with React or React Native and some of the ideas coming in SwiftUI, particularly as it goes to maybe more of the declarative end. And I'm wondering if you noticed that as well.
Yeah, you could tell that there was some inspiration from React Native, right? And really just reactive programming as a whole. I sort of think, in a way, the similarities, folks coming from, in particular, React Native, the similarities are going to make it easy for them to get started and really sneaky when they're different.
So you're worried that people will become a little too familiar or think that it's more similar than it really is? And
well, I'm not that worried, right? It'll be one of those things where it's just like a bug you're not used to, kind of like memory management was before automatic reference counting, right? Folks who are used to like Java would get screwed up in Objective-C because they'd forget about memory management. But this is, I mean, I have to say, like, the post here is pretty clear. If it's one-to-one comparison, it's like, sure, React keeps a lot of the web HTML-y kind of syntax, but the structure of the code, the way things basically flow, for lack of a better word, is virtually the same. There's some weirdness on like interactive controls like buttons. I'm not going to get into like which way I think is better because I'm not a React developer and it would be unfair. I will say that one thing I do like about React's implementation that I'm not thrilled about with the SwiftUI is that it's much more explicit, right? So for instance, and this is like, again, a dumb contrived example.
Yeah, sure.
You have a button, Wes's button in React Native. Well, you just like feed it a function, right? An object that is a function for the on press, and it's literally on press equals, buy Wes's sandwich. SwiftUI makes that much more magical, and like the syntax is.
Yeah, what do you mean by magical here?
Well, so the syntax I find a little hard to read, right? So let's take the example from this.
And again, this will be linked in the docs, so you can follow along.
So like the equivalent in React Native is like you lay out the button, and then in the button HTML tag, you have on press equals this dot on press, right? Is the function he's calling. Great, love it, makes sense. The SwiftUI version is button open parenthesis action colon curly brace. So it's obvious it's a Lambda function, right? Like self on press button, close curly brace I know this is terrible. Another open curly brace. And then it defines the text property, which is press me. Like, it makes sense, but I find it to be, like, if I was looking at a long view with a bunch of buttons like this sample has, which, again, I get it, is contrived. I think a little more window dressing on, like, just having it not be an anonymous function that you just throw in there would make it more readable.
Yeah, it is fairly nested, and it's not exactly clear if you're not.
It's not clear.
Yeah, you're right. It's less explicit. And as someone who's only played with Swift a tiny bit and can try to read it, it took me a little bit, too, to interpret, like, what does this actually mean?
Well, it also requires you to understand, right, that, so like the first one in this list here, it's button action, the one I just read out. That action is actually passing, I'm going to call it a Lambda function. It's just a function, right?
Just like an anonymous function, yeah.
Anonymous function, thank you. Which is, is calling another function called self on press. But then there's like no X, and then it closes the declaration, right, with a closed parenthesis. And then it just has another open curly brace that says text press me. Now, this code is laid out correctly. This is the way Xcode would lay this out. So it's not a dig on the author at all, which is Rohan Panchal. Panchal. It's just confusing because you have to know that this is the way Swift does things. You have to know that second open curly brace is now basically, for lack of a better term, properties on the button, right?
Oh, so you're just adding that as additional stuff that gets applied to the button.
Right. Like there's like all views have properties, like the stuff you would think about, Wes, right? Like background color, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah, of
but
course.
I like even the second example he gives here, where it's the same thing as the first one, but then after you do the text, you also have at the end of the close curly brace dot accent color, and it's RG being a color. To me that's a pretty ugly syntax, basically. Like I would prefer something a little more verbose, I guess.
Yeah,
But
and it's also a
that's
little weird
nitpick.
too. It's kind of hard to tell like what's data versus other stuff that's wrapped up here, right? Like even the color thing, you're passing arguments with numbers and ratios and stuff, but it's all inside some constructor.
Yeah, and it's also a little weird that like, okay, so why is accent color dot accent color, right? Why isn't it like just accent color in the curly braces where the text is? All
right. Well, then, how do you feel about this stuff? I mean, is it fair to say this is gonna be the future? I heard something about as the watch platform is developed more, like this is the way to go for that direction. What does this mean for the state of development targeting Apple's ecosystem?
Yes, on the Apple side of life, Swift UI is going to be the future. I think, this is how Apple does things, right? They release the new paradigm. The old paradigm hangs around for a while, but it's, if I was file new projecting something, which I did, I would go to Swift UI as quick as I could.
And is that, I mean, how much, you've spent a lot of time talking about Objective-C and using it, espousing it here on the show. If you weren't already someone who was sort of playing in Swift or, had not really adopted some of the paradigms there, how much, I'm trying to get a sense, how much of a change is this for just like your standard iOS developer?
Well, I think we can use another Objective-C holdout, Marco Arment, everybody, Marco, Instapaper, ATP. He's even switching to Swift, and he's been resisting that for quite some time, and I completely agree with him. The writing is on the wall. If you're an iOS developer today and you're clinging to Objective-C and you're not going along with the Swift program, you're going to be in bad shape soon. Swift is the way to go. I mean, I still have some things I don't like in the language, some things I don't like about syntax. But if you want to work on this platform, if you want to take advantage of, particularly of Swift UI and some of the new stuff on the watch with native interfaces, you don't have a choice. So, yeah, I mean, but I think there's actually a bigger story here with us, not just iOS, but the whole concept of reactive components and reactive development. This almost reminds me of a couple years after Rails became big.
Oh.
All of a sudden, ASP was doing an MVC version, right? And Python had MVC libraries. MVC frameworks. This seems like, okay, MVVM is hanging on, it's trying, but I think reactive programming has won. And I will concede before people email very, very quickly that the reactive style of programming brought to you by Swift UI is somewhat less reactive than what you might expect in, let's say, React Native, or even how RX Swift was. But it's, I think we're getting there. I wouldn't be surprised in 2 years if we go even deeper into the reactive concepts. And just like MVC was the pattern that you needed to know in, let's say, 2008, I think reactive programming, if you're a young developer and you're just learning, I would urge you to take a look at reactive programming.
Now that can get confusing too, right? Because there's sorts of different styles. There's the large
There's
RX community, and maybe you would put the Elm architecture in there, data flow stuff. So, but you're right. There's a whole class of technologies that has changed the way we view things, and especially recently changed the way we construct user interfaces.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious what your thoughts are. I would consider like React itself, like the the original React from Facebook, as kind of the reference implementation. I know it's an old concept people are going to write in, but for kind of the modern, the modern, I don't even know, family, genus, species. How would you define that?
Yeah, I mean, it did start. I think the main part, I think, of React, right, is you're right. It's the reactive components in that it's less of this two-way stateful interaction that you've seen in other components and frameworks, and instead your view is just a computed function on whatever data that you have, right? So you can have some data structure, some components that you feed into this layer that then acts basically as a peer function that then computes exactly what you want your page to be laid out. Instead of having all this state that's sort of wound up and delegated, pushed down into each of the little leaves on your tree of components that you've wired up, you can just have it flow through, and generally in just like a one-way sort of information cascade. I do think it. Yeah. I mean, it plays nicely with functional programming in general, and I think is a nice toolkit to sort of manage your state a little bit better and understand more of how your whole interface composes and works together. But it's a pretty big change, honestly.
Yeah, and we've been talking a lot about iOS. I'm very curious about what this is going to look like in the Mac world going forward. AppKit is old, like really old, and yeah, it's going to be a thing. I think this is the beginning of a large transition for Apple, and
I think it is nice though. I mean, clearly they've been paying attention to some of the trends in the industry. Obviously, they think that developers are going to want to develop in this style, right? So it's nice to see them not staying still. It does make me wonder, how do you feel about the general governance of Swift? Being developed out in the open, the sort of community, the way it's maintained. Have you looked much into that?
I follow it as much as I can. I mean, I'm not really involved in that. I think it's fine. I don't like the kind of air of to hell with the past, but I get where they're coming from. And an example of this from Swift 4, which now we're on to Swift 5, is basically what they did with for loops, because they decided not to honor the traditional for loop that you'd have in C, which I get it, because in Swift you probably shouldn't do it that way.
Right, it's more of like a for comprehension in Swift, right?
Yeah, and they'd rather you use what they used to call blocks, but are now lambdas, right? Like, which I even think they have a different word now that I can't remember. But it's I would say it's calmed down quite a bit. Like originally, it definitely had an era of like everything old is bad, and we're going to reinvent the wheel, and we're going to bring all this stuff over from like functional languages, right?
So not a gradual transition, maybe a revolution and not an evolution.
Well, it's gone through fits and starts, but the reality is like Cocoa is still an OO framework.
Yeah, totally.
So like now with Swift UI, a lot of those things actually I think make a lot more sense and are going to be a lot easier to work with. But you have a lot of legacy here. And sometimes, and I'm trying to tread lightly here, but when I read the Swift mailing list, it's like, I wish there was less of a, I shouldn't say it, but less of a...
Careful, Mike.
To the barricades, rip them out of their houses, down with the old, in with the new kind of attitude. But the criticism of me, which I've gotten in the past, would be, you just want to keep the advantage that you've been doing this for 12 years, right? Like,
right. I mean, there's a cost to that. You're going to have to learn a bunch of stuff, whereas you're an established expert as it stands now.
Yeah, but it's see, the thing is, like, on the one hand, it is not as different as the people who gripe about it say, nor is it as different as the people who say these differences are going to make all the difference claim. It just like, it isn't the case that by switching to these more reactive or functional paradigms, we're not going to have problems, right? Like my pet peeve with Swift, we talked about, I think, before on the show, is it is a very safe language, but it is obnoxiously so. So whenever I see other people's Swift code, and sometimes mine, the way you get around it is you just slam a bunch of exclamation points, which are basically force unwrapping, right? So you turn off the safety.
Ah, yes. You pull the
Because
escape hatch and try to go that way because you
Yeah,
can't
because
get by the compiler.
it's just a little too tight, right? It like it's so weird. Where I like it in Rust, because I see Rust as more like a systems language, and I'm like running servers, and I don't want to crash, and data integrity. And Swift, it's like, okay, this is an iOS app. If it crashes, you know what? Relaunch it.
Right.
Like,
That's interesting because you just might want to be somewhere else on the spectrum of like safety and proof, right? You want to be like, well, okay, there might be some things here where we can't totally prove that it might not have some weird runtime error or something might happen.
Right.
But it's worth it to you to just be more agile, maybe you want to say, or just be able to move faster, a little looser as you frequently update, change, and develop whatever app you're working on.
yeah, you want to be looser, and like I tend to do very little in iOS apps. I try to keep them as dumb clients if I can. So there's just like not the opportunities for like data corruption that might exist in a server. Also, the art and business, right? There just is a lot more market pressure on price for the front end iOS app side of things.
And as long as it works good enough, it doesn't have to be perfect. Because it never will be, even if it types checks. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, when you have to kind of fight with the compiler, I could totally see if you're like Adobe and you're writing something in Swift, you never want it to crash because you don't want customer support. But on the other hand, if you're a dev shop or a consulting shop, you kind of, not that you want things to crash, but
you're in a
market.
Of course.
Right. We love it. It's great. You're in a market where there are edge cases, but then there are like edge cases that like, sure, in a hypothetical world, if Venus is in retrograde and like Cthulhu comes, that will happen. But Swift makes you cover all of those cases, right? Which is kind of annoying.
Right. Yeah, you do have to think through that. Maybe not something for today's show, but there's an interesting idea of if you could have more, I guess like a contract system. I know Racket has one, Clojure has Clojure spec, but be able to have more sort of a la carte safety for those times where you're like, and I guess, TypeScript is maybe an example of this too, where you can have it really safe with compiler options, but you can also sort of gradually add types as you want to say like, okay, well, I really need these, this core set to be super locked down. The design is mostly finished. Here's how I want it to work. And I want extra guarantees that the compiler can help me with. And maybe you have different edges around where you don't need those same sorts of guarantees.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I don't think that's super. I mean, TypeScript's probably the best at it outside of more niche languages, but I would like to see that applied more because compilers are awesome. And a lot of this tech is really cool. It's just maybe sometimes you don't need it.
Sometimes you just don't need it.
So speaking of all kinds of different languages, we've got a bit of an update and change on our 7 languages challenge. Isn't that right, Mike?
That's right. So because Mike got seduced by Swift UI and couldn't do his homework,
you just changed your assignment, right? I mean, you still did homework.
That's true. Actually, that is true. I just ended up doing a bunch of Swift UI. We're going to go to a 2-week model, just so we can get a little deeper and not be so rushed.
Yeah, I mean, here I was like, I'm playing with Kotlin, right? But Kotlin targets all kinds of different things. There's lots of different ways to use it, and I only just started trying to build a little toy Android app with it. Ooh. So I'm gonna take a little time and see if I can flesh that out a little more. We'll see.
Awesome. Yeah. I think that's going to let us go deeper. And frankly, it's funny. I thought this was going to be my slow season. This WWDC just drowned me.
There is a lot going on. So yeah, I think this makes sense. It'll give us a chance to sort of feature these things a little bit more. And as we're trying languages that are really out of our wheelhouse, I want to have time to actually give them, some of them, they're so different that you need time to sort of soak it in and experience it. And it's not just like something you can review by using a GitHub page and solving a couple academic problems.
Yeah.
So just make sure you subscribe, Coder Radio. Make sure you subscribe, coder.show/subscribe. You can find our RSS feed, other ways to follow us on whatever platform you happen to use. That's the easiest way to find out when a new episode of Coder Radio appears in the feeds. And that way you can make sure you're up to date with everything we're doing, the latest programming challenges, all the wacky feedback, and what kind of Mac did Mike buy this week? Or maybe it's not a Mac, maybe it's another Linux machine. You just can't say, and that's why you have to show up here for Coder Radio. There's just no other way to do it. Now, in between, there's tons of other great Jupiter Broadcasting shows you can find at jupiterbroadcasting.com. Make sure you check out User Error. I really enjoyed the most recent episode. And always, when you're short on time, check out Linux Action News. Short, easy, and a great way to stay up with all the stuff happening in the Linux and open source world. You can also, of course, find both Mike and I on Twitter. I'm at Wes Payne, and Mike, you're...
I'm at Dumanuko.
Yes, you are. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. That'll be it. Come back next time, you hear? Man, I really confused myself there with the outro music because I muted my thing so that if I accidentally did something on my machine, it wouldn't play during the show. And then I guess the way it's set up right now, it just the light, there's like a little keyboard light. It says hey, your thing's muted. Didn't turn on. So I assumed that Smart passed Wes. Well, sometimes he does me a favor and gets everything ready to go, not at the last minute, but no, not this time.
Yeah.
So jbtitles.com. Yeah, we can stop. Stop our recording. And stop.
Stop. Haha.
Now, Mike, I'm seeing some popular demand in the chat room for you to join us on the Friday stream.
Are we?
Yeah.
Oh, is that what he means? I was so confused.
That's how I'm interpreting it. I mean, come on.
Hang on. Let us open Fantastical. What time is that?
Friday stream, 1 p.m. on Friday.
That's 1 p.m. your time, though. 5
yes,
mine, right?
5 for, 4 for you. Right? You're in your East Coast time?
Oh, yeah. I should be able to do that. I'm just, literally, I'm messaging my wife, making sure I don't have to watch the kid. Yeah, so it's 4 p.m. Is it just the same thing, or?
Yeah, hour later than we do this show.
Ooh, and that's the day after my birthday.
And probably we'll just do the same thing, send you a Source Connect link, and you can join us.
Sounds good.
Mike on Friday.
Mike on Friday. All right, let's get some titles.
Yeah, the right way to fork. Oh, that's good. Grate that cheese.
Grate that cheese.
In with the new...
Did he order the Mac Pro? Go back under your bridge, troll.
I'm looking forward to when you do that. I mean, at some point.
It's not going to happen. You know what? I don't want to say that.
Yeah, I mean, you can make that prediction. We can probably get Drew to clip it out for us, and then we'll have that for later when you do eventually buy it.
It's not going to happen. Oh, man. You know what? You know what the sad part is? I'm probably going to end up with an iMac Pro. I can see it already.
Oh, I was trying to counsel one of my friends who's possibly going to grad school, and not like a power user or anything, but has used the Mac platform before. And I just I wasn't sure if I should recommend the new MacBook Pros or not.
The new MacBook Pros, they're fast, they're nice. They still have a shitty keyboard.
Yeah, that was it. I was just yeah, you should probably just go type on one for a while.
Yeah, although I have met sick people who like the keyboard.
Really?
So I don't know. Yeah.
Just voluntarily want to use that keyboard. I've only played with it a little bit, so I can't really talk. My laptop has a real keyboard.
I'm using a DOS keyboard.
Yeah, those are great. You were looking at some of the what was the other one you were looking at?
I picked up and am giving away a Code keyboard because I do not like the cherry. Is it green that I got?
Oh.
The space bar is very sticky.
I see. I've got one of those, but with the clears.
All right, and live permission from the wife. I will be on the Friday stream.
Boom!
Boom. All right. So what is there like a topic on the Friday show? There's no podcast feed for that, right? I couldn't find it on Instacast.
FridayStream.com, baby.
Is it? What the hell? You know why? I'm on the Mac, so my computing ability just like went down 50%.
Yeah, plus, I mean, if you guys are, bored because, it'll be a bit, Coder will be out later. Friday Stream 6 is out, so go check that out.
Ooh.
We've got an update with our favorite magical technical psychic who's hopefully going to help Chris out with all of his computer problems.
Is Elle going to be on? Because I have to ask her to teach me to be less mean.
I don't know, but you could at least make a plea for that. This is the first time hearing of that. She's pretty. I mean, she's awesome. So if anyone can help you, I'm sure it would be Elle.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Joe first, but seems like the wrong guy.
Oh, that's why you've been more mean lately.
And British. Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
I mean, the Britishisms just slip in. They're so much more fun.
They really are.
Start throwing some U's in your words. Why not?
Yeah, call people wanker. We only have 6 votes, guys. Let's go.
Yeah, I don't want to choose something. Bash
this
no
is
more.
Israel, not America. Vote.
Is there something with Swift UI we could get in there?
Yeah, what do we have? Is SciByte is still around?
Swiftly changing. No, we use that for the Friday stream.
Oh. Swift versus Cthulhu? I wish the casing was right, but nah. Did he order a Mac Pro? Bash no more is not bad, actually.
Yeah, maybe remove the exclamation
What
point.
if we did like the plane, or the bells, the shell, but maybe that's too audio.
You should suggest it and see. Throw it out there.
Oh,
If you're still in the chat room.
I am. Suggest. It pings me every time someone suggests. Is that what it's saying? That's very annoying. May the fork be with you. Clever. Bad, but clever. Out with Chris. Wow. It's rebellion. Like.
Yeah, that's just mean. Come on. Don't be mean.
It's just mean.
Sometimes you just gotta fork it. When forking it prevents problems.
Dominic, when I destroy gear, I get audio off. Nice, Chris. Nice.
It's true. I mean, you gotta always be thinking about that content.
Listen, I've bought enough laptops for content for the show.
Yeah, you know how to make a good sacrifice. That's true.
Honestly, if we were smart, we should have started like a segment on just like product reviews.
Oh, that'd be pretty funny.
All right, so now we have a 4-way tie at 2. Great.
Great that cheese. I mean, you did say that. It doesn't mean much, so I don't know if people will. Oh, I don't hate Z Shell. That's not bad. Although Bash No More is good too. Vote it out, everyone. Vote it out.
Vote it out.
Only way to tell.
Oh, aren't you traveling, by the way, next week? Or
Next week, no.
I thought you were. Why did I write that down? Or is it?
I will be traveling at the end of the month. We're doing like a company summit thing. But that shouldn't affect the show.
Ooh.
Now, there might be one show later down the road, but that wouldn't be till... I think the next one that I have that we might need to do a pre-record is in July.
Yeah, July... I leave on the 17th and I fly back the 22nd. But unless my flight is... Ooh. Yeah, unless my flight is screwed up, I should be on time for the show. So.
Okay.
Although maybe we should put one in the tin just in case.
Yeah, that's never a bad idea.
Yeah.
I'm always down to do a double.
Z-Shell could be seen as a Nazi thing, really? Is it like the Third Reich's preferred shell?
I don't agree with their moral choices, but the technical
damn
excellence,
if they don't know how to write a command line.
Yeah.
I mean...
I really love Unix for some reason.
God. And down goes the YouTube channel. Well, Z-Shell's winning, but if it's a Nazi thing, we shouldn't do it. I didn't know that. I thought it was just a clever play on words.
Excellent, don't ruin everything. I mean, I'm all right with that.
I don't even see the connection. I would go with it, but it's not.
All right.
All right. Cool beans. I will be exporting, and I will talk to you on free day.
Sweet deal. Yeah, we'll shoot you info and whatever else you need to know.
Coolio.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, thanks for making it. Good luck with the rest of your day, Mr. Dominic. Go play with Swift UI a little bit more.
I will.
I know you will.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, chat room. Goodbye. You are so lovely.
It's true, I mean, you'd think he's just saying that, but he's not. You are lovely. Especially since you came and joined us today. Wasn't that fun? Now, we did get started a little late. That'll happen sometimes, but we're here like almost every time. Monday, right around noon Pacific. JupiterBroadcasting.com/calendar if you want that auto-converted to a time zone near you. We do our best, not always like today, kind of mess that up, but we try to get that updated when we know that a show is going to change so that you can follow along. Now, we've got lots of other shows this week, really. It's kind of awesome. Tomorrow, Linux Unplugged, 2 p.m. Pacific. Yeah, coming right up. Should be a great show. Make sure you tune in. And then BSD Now is live, 11 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday. And if you haven't checked out BSD Now, now's a great time to do because we've switched. They're doing an audio format, and it sounds great, honestly. So go check that out. And if you want to watch the video, the only place to check it now is tuning in live. A little bit more incentive. It's a lot of fun. Get to see Alan and Benedict's pretty faces. 11 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesday. And then, of course, Friday stream, 1 p.m. Pacific. Go check it out. Sounds like there's going to be mics, so what's not to like? I'm going to get out of here. Make sure Coda Radio is going to come out to a feed near you sometime soon. Thank you for joining, and see you tomorrow for Linux Unplugged, everybody.
Very good. I'm up there after 3 days with full of orange juice. I don't know. It may do great things.